Okay, let's start with a really provocative question. What if, to truly follow Jesus, you had to leave Christianity? Now that's the core idea of this powerful essay we're diving into today. And just to be clear, this isn't about someone losing their faith. It's about someone asking if the institution of the church itself has lost its way.
I mean, this one sentence just lays it all out, doesn't it? The author is so careful with their words here. They're not saying, I doubt Christ. They're saying, I wonder if the faith I know has strayed. And that sets up this huge, powerful question. Could the modern church, the institution itself, actually be a roadblock to its own founder's message? That's the tension we're going to dig into. So, you can see this is really a crisis of commitment. But, and this is the key part, it's not a crisis of faith in Jesus. It's a crisis of commitment to the institution. The author is basically arguing that this isn't just some personal feeling they have. Nope. They believe it's a deep, historical, even structural problem baked right into the church.
So you got to be asking, how did we get here? Well, the author has a name for it, a diagnosis, if you will. And it's a powerful one, the Great Moral Inversion. The whole idea is that over centuries, the church has basically flipped its own rulebook upside down. It's become obsessed with the small stuff, the minor rules, while completely neglecting the biggest, most important commands. And this really breaks that inversion down. You see, the argument is that the institutional focus has been on things like private morality, sexual ethics, personal piety. But Jesus seemed to be all about what are called the weightier matters. We're talking about justice, mercy, and this really cool idea of covenantal care, which is just a way of saying a deep structural promise to care for the well-being of the whole community.
And listen, this is absolutely crucial. This isn't some new hot take from the 21st century. The author grounds this whole argument in the words of Jesus himself. I mean, Jesus literally called out the religious leaders of his own time for doing the exact same thing, getting tangled up in the tiny details of the law while totally missing the whole point.
Yeah, and it wasn't just a one-off thing for Jesus either. The author shows how this theme runs all through the scriptures. You look at the big-name prophets, Amos, Micah, Isaiah. They weren't spending their time railing against private personal sins. No, their outrage was aimed at the big, systemic stuff. Structural injustice, the exploitation of the poor, and society's neglect of its most vulnerable people.
Okay, so what's the author's Exhibit A for this whole great inversion argument? Well, it's this fascinating and honestly mostly forgotten concept from the Old Testament. It's called the Law of Jubilee.
Now, if you haven't heard of Jubilee, get ready, because this is pretty wild. It was basically a divinely mandated societal reset button. The idea was, every 50 years, you press it. And its entire purpose was to stop long-term generational poverty and massive inequality from ever taking root in the first place.
And it wasn't just some vague idea. It had three really concrete pillars. First, all debts, gone, wiped clean. Second, anyone who was an indentured servant was set free. And third, and this is a big one, any ancestral land that had been sold off was returned to its original family. I mean, think about that. It's a blueprint for systemic economic justice, written thousands of years ago.
But, and here's the absolute core of the author's point, what happened to this law, this incredible tool for structural justice, was, for the most part, just pushed to the side. It got relabeled as symbolic, or maybe a temporary law just for ancient Israel. And at the exact same time, those private moral codes, they got elevated to be these eternal, non-negotiable commands. See, that's the great moral inversion, right there in action.
And this really highlights the difference between that ancient vision and how we often operate today. Modern charity, the author argues, is often reactive. It's partial. It's like giving away what they call the crumbs of abundance. But covenantal justice, the Jubilee idea, is totally different. It's systemic. It's proactive. It doesn't just put a Band-Aid on poverty. It asks, hey, why does this wound exist in the first place, and tries to fix that.
This all leads the author to this amazing thought experiment. I love this part. They just ask, what if? What if Christianity had actually taken Jubilee seriously? What would our world even look like today if, for the last 2,000 years, this had been a core principle of how we built our societies? Just try to wrap your head around the scale of that for a second. Over 2 millennia, that's 40 complete societal resets. 40 times the debts were just canceled. 40 times land was returned. 40 times the entire economic playing field was leveled. Can you even imagine how that would fundamentally alter the course of human history? So what are some of the outcomes?
Well, for starters, the kind of massive, multi-generational wealth we see today would be pretty much impossible. The whole idea of private property would have these built-in guardrails, defined not by individual desire but by the well-being of the entire community.
And get this, the author even applies this logic to ideas. Imagine a world where intellectual property, all the big inventions, scientific breakthroughs, even art, just entered the public domain every 50 years. Knowledge wouldn't be something you hoard, it'd be a collective treasure we all share and build on.
The bottom line is, our entire financial and legal systems would be unrecognizable. They would have been built from the ground up expecting these resets. Fairness and redistribution wouldn't be an afterthought, they'd be coded right into the DNA of our society.
So, after going on this incredible thought experiment, where does this leave the author? You might think it's a place of despair or just total rejection, but it's not. The conclusion is that the only way forward is a radical recommitment to the original core ethic of Christ. And this is where we come full circle to that surprising title. For the author, leaving Christianity isn't about walking away from the faith, not at all. It's an attempt to get closer to Christ, to follow his radical, demanding ethic without being weighed down by centuries of institutional compromises and baggage.
And the essay wraps up with this powerful call to action. The logic goes like this. If Jesus isn't physically here, then his followers, the church, what's called his body, are supposed to be his hands and feet in the world. And that job isn't just about worrying about private behavior, it's about actually embodying his work. The work of building a world filled with real, systemic justice, mercy, and faithfulness.
So, in the end, we're left with this really challenging question. And it's not just for the author, it's for all of us. How can we live as if Jubilee wasn't just some dusty, ancient memory, but a present, active principle for right now? It's really an invitation, whatever you believe, to just imagine a world built on a much more demanding and maybe more beautiful call for justice, mercy, and taking care of each other.